Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? Today is Monday, May 25th, 2022. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer, and UnX Networks. Race Hobbs. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking? How you doing? How you doing? All right, we've got an amazing week coming up here on Fade to Black. It is our UFO hearing week. That's right. Tonight, Stephen Bassett of PRG is with us for night one. Tomorrow night, Sean Cahill and a very special guest are here for night two. Wednesday night, Ron James from MUFON is with us for night three. Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And coming up, want to let everybody know we have sold out our tour in Egypt this October with Billy Carson. I'll be in Detroit next week on June 5th for the world premiere of Billy Carson's Black Knight film. I'll be hosting Disclosure Fest coming up in a couple of weeks. I can't believe it. Very quick. June 18th, one day only, Saturday in downtown Los Angeles, California, at the Los Angeles State Historic Park, right next to Chinatown. That's right, Chinatown. Jack Nicholson, Chinatown. And just go to disclosurefest.org, and the links for everything are all over the web, over on our website, in the video description box below, if you are on YouTube. I don't know where you are listening, where you are watching from, what's your platform of choice. I don't have any idea, but we've got it out there in social media and over on the website. All right, follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you do. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. The Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. We don't bite. If you want to check out my world of guitars, head over to Instagram at Jimmy Church Radio. Yeah, I don't have any UFO stuff over there. I'm keeping that my private little world of music, but go check it out. And I've been posting stuff up over there, all guitar related. So you can check that out too as well. Any questions or comments, hashtag F2BQ. And, of course, the Sandbox is hashtag F2B. I've always got the Sandbox right here to my right. It's always, so 15 seconds ago, Madeline, hey, Jimmy, what's in your coffee cup? Today is May 23rd, not the 25th. Oh, did I say 25th? Today's the 23rd. I did. Did I say 25th? Did I say 25th? Wow, I've got 23rd in front of me here, and here. And if I look over on my phone, let me light that up. Yeah, pretty much. It is May 23rd. So there you go. What's in your coffee cup? Coffee. All right. What a weekend. I will get to all of that in just a bit, but first, let's get to the breaking news. An invasive worm species. All right. First, it was murder hornets. Now, it's a worm known for its voracious appetite and ability to jump. That's right. A foot in the air has arrived in California, where scientists have expressed concerns about the threat the worms pose to the forest ecosystems. It is called the Amnesty agrestis, also known as the Asian jumping worm. They always come from Asia, but it's also called the Alabama jumper or the crazy snake worm. They've been spotted in California in recent months. The earthworm is native to East Asia, particularly to Japan and the Korean Peninsula. However, in recent years, the worms made their way to North America via various imported landscape plants. The worms are distinctive for their theatrical behavior, including wild movements and even detaching body parts. They're also hermaphrodites and can reproduce without mating. Yeah, I'll just leave that right there. Coming to a theater near you. The Alabama, what's it called? The Alabama jumper. A small town in Maine has effectively shut down after its only clerk resigned. Her name is Christian Bouchard. She resigned from her role as town clerk at Passadumpkeg, Maine. That's the actual name of the town. Passadumpkeg. Yeah. On April 7th, because she was denied her 2-week vacation, and she was upset, so she quit. She was the clerk. She was the deputy treasurer. She licensed pets. She registered vehicles. She maintained records with the Maine's Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. You know, Lake Placid. She oversaw the 2020 election after just 3 days of training and 2 months on the job. Now, with Bouchard gone, the town cannot issue vehicle registrations. They can't inspect homes or businesses. They can't assess properties or respond to reports of rabid or abused animals. That's right. The town has effectively been forced to shut down. Man, give Kristen her vacation. It's that simple. Man, she's been running the town. You know, sometimes you need a break. You just did. I just got a text from Stephen Bassett. Let me tell you something. It's a cool dude. It's a cool dude right there. All right, NASA back in the news because NASA is suspending all but the most urgent spacewalks after water was found in an astronaut's helmet following a Mars excursion. NASA will perform an assessment of its EMU spacesuits after water was found in the helmet worn by ESA astronaut Matthias Maurer following a March 23rd spacewalk. This means that astronauts will not go outside and perform EVAs unless there is a pressing need for repairs or a UFO sighting at the International Space Station. Given that the affected EMU won't return to Earth for analysis until July, non-urgent spacewalks that don't involve ET will be put off the table for several months. All right. Well, Starbucks back in the news. I got to turn on my AC. It's like warm in here. And see, I got this smart house. And I got my Black Mirror house. So I just, I punch it in and hopefully it listens to me. I don't like that. You remember when your dad would go up and he had that dial and then he had the switch on the bottom and then a little Post-it note underneath it, don't touch. At least you knew what was going on. You don't with a smart home. It's just like once in a while it listens. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You saw my little post about the alarm system after Yngwie Malmsteen on Friday. More on that in just a bit. Starbucks is leaving Russia for good. The company paused its operation and stopped shipments of its products to Russia back in March. Now, it has made the decision to exit and no longer have a brand presence in Russia. Starbucks has shut down all of its 130 locations. Employees in the country, which number about 2,000, will get paid for 6 more months. That's it. Wow. Okay. All right. I just had a little thought there for a second. According to a statement released by the University of Wyoming, excavations led by Wyoming state archaeologists and researchers from the University of Wyoming have uncovered evidence of an ancient mine dated to around 13,000 years ago where Paleo-Indians extracted hematite, an iron oxide, which they made red ochre, paint. The researchers believe the mine is possibly the oldest of any kind in the Western Hemisphere. The Wyoming mine, known as the Powers 2 site, is the only red ochre quarry so far documented in North America in the entire archaeological record, and the only one of 5 quarries ever to have been identified in all of the Americas. And that is incredible, just absolutely incredible. Well, I got some breaking news. Kurt Cobain's guitar, used in the video for Nirvana's lead single Smells Like Teen Spirit, has been sold at auction for $4.55 million. The guitar, a 1969 left-handed Fender Mustang, was expected to sell between $600,000 and $800,000, according to Julian's Auctions. The Lake Placid Blue guitar was bought by the Jim Irsay Collection. That's right, out of Indianapolis. Yes, Jim is the owner of the Indianapolis Colts NFL team. Incredible. Lake Placid Blue. I got a Lake Placid Blue Strat right there. I don't have Kurt Cobain's guitar. $4.5 million. Wow. Let's get this show cracking on this day in history. OTD. 1934. Bonnie and Clyde are shot to death in an ambush by Texas and Louisiana State Police while driving a stolen car near Salis, Louisiana. Fader fact. All right, here you go. Now, here's one for you. It's for the record books right here. Portraits of dead presidents were not depicted on the official currency of the United States of America until the beginning of the 20th century. Before that, the first dollars had the figures and faces of Greek and Roman mythology. Trip on that. And that is your Fader fact. Tonight, very special guest Stephen Bassett of PRG is with us for night number 1 of our UFO hearing week. Tomorrow night, Sean Cahill and a very special guest are here for night 2. And then Wednesday night, Ron James of MUFON is here for night 3. 3 different points of view, maybe 4, maybe even 5 on the UFO hearing from last week on the Hill. Tonight, of course, it's Stephen Bassett. Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. Now it's time for me to hit Madeline this River Moon coffee. rivermoonwellness.com. Yeah, I like my coffee, Doc. Yeah, all right. Still recovering from Friday night. I am. Need my River Moon Wellness Fade to Black blend. Promo code F2B blend, 15% off of your order today. Yeah, this is my third cup of coffee today. 2 a.m. I've got one more waiting for the second half of the show. This is number 3. And that's a lot of coffee when it's this good. Okay. All right. Where am I at? Oh, yeah. So I went to see Yngwie Malmsteen on Friday night at the Canyon Club in Montclair. And I want to take a minute here to thank hospitality manager Spencer for making it a truly special evening. Yeah, it was food, it was drink, and it was great seats. Spencer, thank you so much. I'm sitting in the band's little lounge area. And I was sitting, and I haven't met Spencer, but he walks around the corner, and there he is. And I was like, okay. Hi, Jimmy, I'm Spencer. And I was like, oh man. And Spencer literally said to me, I watch the show every night. I was like, what? In my living room, man, big screen. So he's probably watching right now and laughing, going, Jimmy doesn't BS, because that's exactly what I said to him. That was the introduction, and that's how the evening started out. I did bring my Fender. Oh, hold on a minute, folks. See, I'm not even ready. This is a live show. I did bring this Fender Strat with me, and got it signed by Yngwie. You can see right there. And this is the mini Fender Strat, and it was pretty cool. I'll tell you more about it in a second. But yeah, so it says, Jimmy, play loud. That's what it says. And so. Thank you, Spencer, for that. Now, do you remember? I'm going to come back to Spencer a few more times in the next couple of minutes. Spencer was incredible. Do you remember me sharing a story about how I got to California? I've told it a few times, but if you've missed it, I met my friend Dwayne in Indy through his dad. I was, I don't even think I was drinking age. I was probably 20. And I met Dwayne, and Dwayne at the time was probably 15, I'm guessing, 15, 16. He might not have been 16. I was 20. We were kids. And that part is, it's a long story. But Dwayne called into the show maybe a year ago, and we talked about the time we saw Yngwie at the Palladium in Hollywood back in, it must have been 1985. And when Yngwie hit the stage, and he's out there, I don't know, man, Black Star, whatever it is, right? I'll see the light tonight, whatever it was. When Yngwie hit the stage, I looked over at Dwayne. Dwayne's standing next to me, to my left, and he's got tears coming down his face, man. And he's just looking at the stage. It was awesome. I mean, awesome. That's what Yngwie meant to Dwayne. And I know he was just overwhelmed, and it was just so cool. And so Dwayne called into the show. We told that story because, A, it's true. B, I think we've all had those moments when we get overtaken by emotion. Well, 37 years later, that kid, Dwayne, he's grown up. He's a dad. He's got great kids. One of his sons is named Yngwie, by the way. Dwayne's so proud of that. Showed me his driver's license right there, Yngwie. And the driver's license. And and there was another story. Let's back up. We were at the movie theater in Sierra Madre, and I don't remember the movie that we saw, whatever it was in 1984, 85, Back to the Future or something. I don't know. But after the movie, we were in the parking lot smoking a little weed, a little Mary Jane, a little marijuana out by the car, and a cop pulls up, and we're just long-haired kids. It's totally the movie Dazed and Confused. Cop gets out. I need to see your ID, and I was like, oh man. And so they come up to Dwayne, and Dwayne goes, I don't have ID. And he goes, what's your name? And he takes out this pad of paper, and Dwayne goes, Ingve. The cop goes, Ingve? How do you spell that? Dwayne goes, Yngwie. What's your last name? Malmsteen. All right, Malms. And we're all standing there like, he didn't. Cop, I think cop called it in, Ingve Malmsteen, right? And there was no warrant out for Ingve, so Dwayne got away with that. But that was Dwayne. So now, fast forward to Friday night. Dwayne's grown up, and he's just one of my best and oldest friends in the world, obviously. But on Friday, he got to hang out with Ingve all day long. And again, I want to thank Spencer. I know Dwayne is thanking Spencer every day for the rest of his life for this, but Dwayne got to check this out. The guy with tears, at the age of 18, got to pick up Ingve from his hotel and bring him to sound check. How cool is that? Ingve said, I want some Starbucks. Dwayne's like, I'm the Starbucks runner. Off Dwayne went and got him his dinner and just was able to hang out with Ingve all day long. And it was just so special for me. We got to hang, Mick Stone, myself. Mick was the singer in my band, Emergency. And so the three of us, friends of 40 years, are all there. And my other friend, Olivier, who was our roommate at the time. And as a matter of fact, the four of us, Mick, Olivier, myself, and Dwayne, all lived together in the same house at the same time for a couple of months. So Dwayne got to hang out, and in the dressing room, talking to Ingve, it was just very special, and taking pictures. And I know when I stood back and I watched Dwayne take those pictures with Ingve, I mean, I was so touched. I was excited a little bit for me, and and Mick and all of that. No, it was Dwayne. It was Dwayne. It was a very, very, very special moment. So I posted up some of the pictures. I've got a lot. I didn't want to just flood everything. We'll save some more for later. But I got to shoot some video. I shot like 3 or 4. And one of the videos, which is posted, you can check it out over on my Instagram, and it's over on Facebook. Dwayne and I walked backstage from the front of the venue. I got the video running. We shoot. We walk, go through security, go backstage, and walk right up to the side of the stage, and shot Ingve playing Black Star. I think that's what he was playing. And then turned around and looking at Dwayne's face. That's Dwayne at the end of the video wearing the fade to black shirt. And looking at Dwayne's face, it was just a very, very, very special night. And we were just yelling and screaming and carrying on. Later on that night, I don't talk about social media too often, but so I posted a picture, I think, and I turn around and I saw Ingve's phone there in the dressing room. It's you can see it in one of the pictures, it's sitting right here. And later on that night, I get home after dealing with the police. I kicked off my alarm system, which does work. And the police left. I go to bed. I'm tired. And I crawl into bed, and I see that Yngwie has commented and retweeted my stuff and also the stuff I posted on Instagram. And I thought to myself, he didn't have to do that. What a cool guy. And it was an awesome night. And Yngwie, he's probably playing somewhere right now. But thank you for the hospitality, man. You're a cool dude, and thank you for making that night for Dwayne so special. All right. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, and if you do get a chance, if Yngwie's coming to your town, go and check him out. I got to give a shout out to his bass player, Emilio. Very, 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 very cool dude. And all right, I'm going to leave that right there. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, night one of our UFO hearing week. Tonight is night one with Stephen Bassett. Tomorrow night, we've got Sean Cahill and a special guest. Wednesday night, it is Ron James of MUFON. And then Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. I'm going to say this. After seeing the Canyon Club, I think we should do a UFO event there. What do you guys think about that? Southern California, knock it out. Yeah, I think I can make that happen. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Take a quick break, and I'll be right back with Stephen Bassett of PRG. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the unxnetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the unxnetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UnX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time. It's new. It's the X.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. As you can see, Stephen Bassett is ready. He's in the green room. And Sherman, I just wanted to let you know that your good friend Dwayne texted me earlier today and said, be sure for me to call Sherman Spencer. It'll be funny. There you go. All right, Sherman, you're amazing, and thank you for the absolute wonderful evening. Tonight is night one of our UFO hearing week here on Fade to Black. Tonight, for night one, we have Stephen Bassett here of the Paradigm Research Group. Stephen is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, founded back in 1996 to end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind the so-called UFO phenomenon. Stephen has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of formal disclosure by world governments of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. He has given over 1,000 radio and television interviews, and PRG's advocacy work has been extensively covered by national and international media. Of course, back in 2013, PRG produced the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., November 5th, 2014. PRG launched a Congressional Hearing political initiative seeking the first hearings on Capitol Hill since 1968. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one, the only, Stephen Bassett. Stephen, big week for you, man. How you doing? How you feeling? Oh, you're muted. Okay, you need to unmute yourself.
Very sorry.
I don't have control of that. You have control of this show, young man. You can do whatever you want.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, look, it's been quite a week. I feel really energized, and so we'll be talking about it. But first, I want to say something, Jimmy. There are times, particularly when you get into sort of more like one of your kind of slow reminiscences, kind of talking about some things in the past, where I'm listening with my eyes closed and I'm almost taken back to the late 90s and Art Bell, listening to him on the East Coast late into the night. And sometimes when I was on the show, just takes me back because there's a lot of Art Bell in you. And so it's kind of cool.
Oh, man. Thank you for that. I mean, yeah. You know what also used to happen back in the early days of Art Bell is when people would come on and say, Art, I love your intro on the show. And I hear that here, and I just think to myself, either I'm in a time warp or I'm doing something right, and so thank you for that.
My pleasure. Hey, it's about intro and bumper music and that good gravelly voice. You put that together and you got yourself a hit. Okay, Jimmy, look, this is a kind of important show for me. I've been giving a lot of interviews, and I'm going to be saying tonight what I've been saying in these other interviews, and many more I'm going to be doing going forward. But I'm getting more concise about it, which is good, because you know me. I can go 2 hours and not even know it, right? And somebody's looking at me. Steve, we have to end now. So I'm gonna give you the basic story that I want to discuss, and I'm going to let you ask me questions about it. And so here I go. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
This is what your audience needs to hear. And one of the reasons it's important is because I believe I'm the only person that's really talking about this in this manner. And the reason I think for that is I'm still, maybe there's somebody else out there, but I'm still pretty much the only full-time political activist that addresses this issue from that perspective. I haven't been dealing with the phenomenology that much. That's not my area. My area is the politics of this, which means the truth embargo. So I've spent 26 years thinking about, addressing, and engaging the truth embargo that the government imposed on this. And so everything that's happening, I don't care what it is, I see it through that lens. And so through that lens, here is what I'm telling you I see and know. First of all, your audience, anybody that's watching what's unfolding, whether they're brand new to it and nothing in the past and they're seeing this happening and going, oh, that's interesting. People that know a little bit more, and then those that have studied the issue for years. Here's what I need to tell them. Understand, the United States government has known, meaning those in the Department of Defense that need to know, members of Congress, I assure you, going all the way back to 1947, know there's an extraterrestrial presence and pretty much know what it is. They know this because Roswell was exactly what the researchers say it was, particularly Tom Carey and Don Schmidt. And the definitive book is The Witness to Roswell and the director's cut that came out later. The government has had in its possession a crashed vehicle not of human origin. It has had in its possession the dead bodies of non-humans, and it had for a while one live extraterrestrial. So again, let me repeat that. The U.S. government, those that need to know, have known this for 75 years. They have been investigating it, researching, tracking it, and addressing it from every conceivable angle for 75 years. And there are members of Congress during that entire period that knew. One way or another, they got tipped off. All right. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
As we deal with what's going on now. Now, once you've got that in your head, right, or at least accept it for the sake of discussion and argument, then reassess and look at things the way I look at it. And when you look at what's been going on for the last 5 years, going back to essentially December of 1997, what you are seeing is not about discovery. It is not about the Pentagon finding out that, boy, there's something there. It could be real and we need to maybe investigate it now. Maybe even do that in the open. It is not about discovery. It is about public relations. Now, what do I mean by public relations? All right. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of anybody in the Pentagon that's been working on this issue, knows about this issue, and what have you. Any member of Congress or staffer that knows the truth of this issue, knows the ET presence is there, and maybe have been involved in it in some indirect way. And imagine that sometime around 2015, you start to pretty much come to the conclusion, not 2015, starting in really 2015 thereabouts, but definitely manifesting in 2017, the end of 2017, you start to come to the realization that the truth embargo, God bless it, is coming to an end. Its days are numbered. It's going to end. And when it does, every American citizen is going to be told there's an extraterrestrial presence. And very shortly after that, that's disclosure, by the way, everything after that's post-disclosure, they're going to come to learn that the government's known about it for 75 years and embargoed it from the American people. And that is going to be a really awkward time for everybody connected to this issue, living, dead, retired, whatever, and particularly those still been working on the issue and still working for the government in some capacity. Mm-hmm. It's going to be brutal. All right. It's the biggest lie in all of human history. It's not like that lie about Vietnam or the lie about Iraq and others they've done. Those were kind of short term, dealing with war, which is important. This isn't short-term lie. This is 75 years. And the issue that they're lying about is the most important the human race has ever dealt with. It's about the most important information the human race is ever going to learn. And so for that to suddenly become manifest on the day of disclosure poses for them enormous problems. So what do you do if you're these people? What if you do if you're working inside these programs or working in the DOD, managing it or whatever else? What if you do is you simply knowledgeable about it and you're in government, you know it's coming. You do what any reasonable person would do. You say, look, we have got to take some measures here that will sort of distance ourselves from this whole truth embargo, right? Whether I was involved in it or not, whether I managed it or not, doesn't matter. We have got to distance ourselves from that truth embargo and disclosure event when it takes place. Now, you may say, well, why? What's the point?
Right.
It's simple, right? You go about the proper things. You do the right things. You respond in the right ways. You get more transparent. You do this, you do that. You set up a task force. You talk about looking at reports and changing some protocols. And you do it in the open, and you give reports to Congress. And then Congress starts passing legislation. The next thing you know, you're having hearings. All of these things is the way it always should have been, going back to the 50s. But I respect the fact that it wasn't going to happen in the 50s or 60s, 70s, or 80s. And that is because of the nuclear weapons race, the Cold War, and the fact that we all lived on the edge of destruction under the aegis of the mutual assured destruction approach. So, okay, but it should have happened after 1991. It should have happened during the Clinton administration. But unfortunately, well, what did happen in the Clinton administration was that Rockefeller approached the administration to try to go get those files. In other words, he was servicing for 3 years a project to get the White House to force the Department of Defense to give him what he wanted so he could disclose. Unfortunately, that wasn't going to work. Certainly not then. He was completely stonewalled, embarrassed, attacked, and ultimately they came up with complete bogus lies, including the Air Force report of 1997, which is one of the greatest disgraces the Air Force has ever had, where they simply spent millions of dollars to lie about the whole thing. It couldn't work. This has got to go through Congress. It has to go through Congress with congressional hearings, which is why since 1968, many people that we know have tried to get those hearings coming at the Congress from many different angles, and every single effort was blocked cold. A couple that I knew about, one of them I know was blocked by the then chairman of the Intelligence Committee, because the government knew, those that knew about the issue knew that actual hearings, real hearings in front of the Congress with everybody watching, aired on all the networks, would end the truth embargo. And so unless you were prepared to end the truth embargo, you could not have those hearings. So 54 years go by and we don't have those hearings. All right. But obviously that has changed. And so starting in 2017, things get underway that are essentially leading there. And what are those things? First, the emergence of the To the Stars Academy. Fine. Then the delivery of the information by Blumenthal and Kane to the New York Times, putting out those two extraordinary, groundbreaking, milestone, paradigm-shifting articles, right, which will go down in history, that explodes it into the media. I've now put into my print media archive way over 1,500 articles directly related to all that came out of those two articles going forward. They're all earmarked. You can go read all 1,500 of them. Obviously, that is going to start getting things going, all right? But something else happened. Two of the people inside the To the Stars Academy group, Louis Elizondo and Christopher Mellon, weren't just in there so they could be part of a public benefit corporation or whatever. They were in there because they had a plan. They had an agenda, which I believe was also, I think, the plan of the other people. But not everybody was going to be able to front this. It was Mellon and Elizondo that were going to front it. So they took off. They split eventually away from the TTSA, and for several years now, like it wasn't supposed to take this long, I assure you. It wasn't supposed to take 5 years because that is not what they wanted, and it's not been helpful to them. But nevertheless, they took advantage of this time, and they went out to lay the groundwork for the hearings that must happen. Now, Mellon was the point person on the hearings. He was the one going up on the Hill, bringing witnesses, briefing members of Congress, particularly the Intel committees, the Armed Forces committees, Armed Services committees. We have no idea how many briefings he gave. I think it was a lot because they were not publicized, except to the extent that a member might mention they had a briefing. Even the president was briefed on this. It was behind the scenes briefings, clearly in preparation for the Congress to take action at a later time. Mellon did something extraordinary there, and he will be acknowledged for that. The other person was Elizondo. His role, I believe, and again, I'm more than prepared to be corrected, right, by the principals. I'll get in touch with me and say, Steve, you got it wrong. Here's the way it is. Elizondo was to be the spokesperson in a way, the guy that was going to try to convey this to the general public and keep the thing alive because it wasn't supposed to get stretched out. And so what they were doing, they needed to keep it alive in the public's mind. So not surprisingly, Elizondo was done what? 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 podcasts. He's going to do another interview later this week. And that's great, except that it was tough, because if you're going to be the spokesperson, if you're going to go on podcast after podcast and talk about this and answer and have to take all of these questions, some of which you really can't answer, you have to defer repeatedly to the fact that you can't speak to that, it's classified. You are going to become the target of every troll on the internet. You are the target, not Mellon. He's sitting back. You're the guy out there taking arrow after arrow after arrow. It has been brutal. I have watched it take place, and I have nothing for sympathy for this man. But he was doing something else. The Unidentified show and interviews that he's given, he has been vetting witnesses. He has been vetting witnesses that are potential witnesses before Congress. And that means military people like Dietrich, like Fravor, like the nuclear weapons tampering witnesses and so forth, setting the witnesses, or at least getting the names, talking to them, so that when the time comes, those witnesses are going to be prepared to step out, come up to the Hill and testify. And that's pretty much all behind the scenes. He talks about it a little bit. And recently he's mentioned the need for hearings. He's not the only one. These are the two people who have fronted the process that has led us to what happened on Tuesday the most. But in addition to what Elizondo and Mellon have done, the journalists need a tremendous amount of credit here, because they have stepped up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles about what is going on from every angle in all the major papers. And so every time the Washington Post, the New York Times, any of the major networks have somebody on, Politico, do stories, legitimate stories covering this process, they are backing Mellon and Elizondo up. And then something else was finally happening. The language was changing. The language of the embargo, the language of the intellectual ghetto the government created was changing. We were leaving it behind. It's not about UFOs. It's about UAPs, because UFO is the ridicule name, the acronym designed to separate everybody out. If you say UFO, you are a UFO tinfoil hatter. End of story. Don't care what you know. Don't care what you think. Get out of here. But UAP, which means exactly the same thing, doesn't carry all of that baggage. And so you can say that and not have people give you that stupid look. And so what have you seen the last couple of years? The journalists are using it. The members of Congress are using it. Scientists are using it. It's the language that turns up in the laws that are being passed. But there are other ways the language have changed, right? Embargo, not cover up, and so forth. Language is important in order to advance politics. And so that has taken place. The journalists have helped that happen. All good. All right. And then finally, right, a member of Congress, right, after many members had mentioned the issue, talked to the issue, put language in legislation, all that back and forth, which we can talk about in a show, said, okay, I'm holding a hearing. All right. And that hearing took place on May the 17th. It will go down in history. It was exactly what I was expected, though a lot of people are not looking at it through my lens, are going, are you kidding me? This is crap. This is nothing. They should have done this. They should have done that. That's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. However, when you look at it under the way that I have talked about, meaning the government already knows what the ETs are. The government already knows what these craft are, at least in terms of knowing that they're extraterrestrial, and maybe knowing a lot more about them that they talk about now.
Right.
Then you begin to realize why it doesn't quite make sense, why that doesn't make sense. And this person said that. But then once you realize, oh, I get it, right? They have to do this in order to make disclosure possible. They have to do this to make it, to bring the Congress involved, to bring the DOD involved, to give them a chance to show the people what the right way is, because the people have short memories. They will react to what they've just seen. They're not going to go back years and years and go, wait a minute, why not that? They're going to say, hey, what you done lately? That is what's taking place. And I'm inviting people to look at it that way. And we'll talk, and I'll answer any questions you got about it.
Well, I spoke at length yesterday with Lou, discussing the hearing, obviously, and some other things. And at the start of the conversation, I mean, that's all private, but I'll say this. When I picked up and I said, dude, crazy week, huh? Right? And his response was this. He said, Jimmy, buckle up. It was cool, but we're just getting started. This is just the beginning. And get ready for some things over the next couple of weeks. And the way that I know Lou well enough now to say that I can detect the tone in his voice. He loves to joke. He loves to kid around. He's a funny guy. But when he's serious, he's very serious. He has a way of projecting that where I snap to attention. And I did when he said that yesterday. And that being said, I think that he really I just said I think. I know that he really just wants to run in the background. He doesn't want the accolades. He doesn't want to be patted on the back. He doesn't want to pat himself on the back. He is in a genuine position to put everything that he's got into this to move things forward. And with a personality like his behind this entire thing, I would say that it's our best shot for sure, Stephen. Now, before I let this thought get away from me, a few months ago, you were a guest at my house. We had dinner. We sat until late into the night. We discussed pretty much every angle of disclosure in the UFO question.
And I want to do that again, please. That was a fun night.
That was a fun night. It was great food. Great conversation. And yes, absolutely. But here's the deal. The one thing we didn't talk about was a hearing on Capitol Hill. We didn't have any idea. Were you surprised, as the rest of us were, to have it announced and then a week later it actually went down? Were you surprised to have it happen this quickly?
No, Jimmy. Well before we had that dinner, I was giving interviews one after another, saying hearings are coming. They're inevitable. Based upon everything that had happened since 2017 and following Elizondo and Mellon's activities closely and all they were doing. I absolutely knew hearings were coming. So well, let me put it this way. The only reason I was surprised, right, is because, aside from everything else that's happening out there, as things are starting to shape up, and I'm feeling very optimistic, Vladimir Putin, an aging, possibly dying of cancer autocrat, decides he wants to go out by invading a country and killing women and children on the way out, and also rattling the nuclear weapon saber day after day. So I'm thinking, boy, that is not going to help any committee chair call for hearings on this, right? It's on the basis of, look, we could have a nuclear war, so we need to put that off to the side. So in that sense, when Carson called it, that surprised me a little bit. And but I believe that, well, and we can get into this later, right? Because I want to mention something about Lou again. I believe that the calculus of calling that hearing, in spite of what's going on in Ukraine, makes sense. And in spite of the midterm elections that are coming up, makes sense. And I'll talk about that. But let me just mention, Lou, one of the things, I think one of the 4 or 5 interviews he's done since the hearing, I think he's mentioned, yeah, we need witnesses and we need more hearings. He's not the only one saying that, okay? And that's just his way of, hey, letting people know this can't be the first one. But I got to believe that no one was more thrilled than Lou Elizondo when he's watching that hearing, because he knows probably the worst is over. And what I mean by that, I think he will step into the background. And the reason for that is, well, 2 reasons for that. He's got enough arrows in him, right? And he's dealt with enough internet, social media trolling. He needs a vacation. But more importantly, the process is now starting. He's likely going to step back and start working behind the scenes to help prepare for these next hearings. I have no doubt he is going to be involved in that. I can't imagine he wouldn't be. Mellon is already in the background, okay? And so I expect him to step back. He doesn't need to, I think, to do any more podcasts for a while. This thing is happening. People they know that, and he'll reemerge, I suppose, at some point. But this is a logical thing, and that's a good sign. It means that he's going to be doing some things in the background that is going to ensure that the next hearings come soon. I'm hoping it's in 2 weeks.
Let's get ready to take our break. When we come back, I want to get into some very specifics about the hearing and get your thoughts on all of that. I will say my overall take, and immediately after the hearing, because I was tweeting out at 6 a.m. I watched it live. That the immediate reaction from everybody kind of surprised me. I just felt like, did you guys even see the same thing that I saw? But this was my take. I said that I just saw, or just heard and saw, E.T., extraterrestrials, Roswell, Blue Book, flying saucers, Wilson Davis Dock, Malmstrom Air Force Base, all mentioned at a hearing on Capitol Hill at the same time. It was a great day.
Well, you have done 40,000 interviews. I mean, you're and if you've got a good memory, I think you do. You actually have a massive amount of knowledge up there from interviewing just about everybody in the field. And so you're like in my position. I mean, you were looking at that with that knowledge, and you were able to pick up on what was valuable. And there's some things you might have missed. We'll talk about that after the break. And I want people to know, look, what you saw that day will go down in history. I'm telling you, okay? And so be happy and be supportive of your members of Congress and the DOD. They're actually trying to get the job done, but they have a process they got to go through in order to make it as comfortable as possible.
Our guest tonight, the one and only Stephen Bassett. I am your host, Jimmy Church. We're going to take a quick break right here. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer and on X Networks. I'll be right back after this short break. Tonight is night one of UFO Hearing Week here on Fade to Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick message.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. And I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can right now get your own free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, the one and only Stephen Bassett is here at PRG for night one of UFO Hearing Week here on Fade to Black. It is such a special time, not only for members of our community, but people like Stephen that have been at this for a very long time. We're going to cover this from every angle this week. And going back to the conversation, Stephen, I had mentioned I want to go through some of the highlights for the week, but I want to start off not with the hearing, but what happened right before the hearing. And that was Representative Andre Carson of Indiana. His tweet announcing the hearings said UFOs in it. And now he typed out unidentified aerial phenomena, but then he put in parentheses UFOs. And from the word go, this hearing was about UFOs. And he wanted to make that very clear. Was that the vibe that you got going into this?
Not exactly. I think that he's this transition from UFO to UAP, which is really the transition from the truth embargo to the truth process. He's a little behind the curve, all right? But I think also he really wanted people to understand that this is the real deal and it's about this phenomena. He knows that a lot of people are connecting to it through UFO. So he kind of put both in. What a lot of people are doing is they're putting UFO/UAP, right? So people get the connection. That's cool, all right? But there were some other things that happened. Let me describe for your listeners and viewers what took place in that basically 4-day period. All right, that I'm most interested in. I consider important. All right, look, about 2 days before the hearing, another member of Congress who'd been speaking out a little bit, by the name of Tim Burchett. He is a Republican from Tennessee. He is conservative, religious. And comes across as one of those good old boys. But if you listen carefully, you realize this is a very, very smart man. And he is one of a number of members of Congress that decided that I'm going to speak to this. I'm stepping out on this, right? Like Gallego, like obviously Gillibrand, Mark Warner, Mark Rubio, Carson, Mark Walker, and others. And he stepped out, but he's a little more aggressive. So he made a few comments, and so he was invited on a show called I'm not sure the name. Anyway, it's on News Nation. Leland Villert is the host, right? And it's a talk show like any other. It's a very conservative platform, and so they're really excited. And he's up on the wall, right, doing the old Zoom screen and what have you. And Villert gets really excited, and he looks at Tim and he says, "Look, there's only 3 possibilities here. Either it's U.S. technology, advanced technology is being tested and is being seen, right? But it's classified, so they can't acknowledge it. Or it's the advanced technology from Russia or China that's out there doing things it probably shouldn't be doing, and they can't talk about that. Or it's technology from off this planet, right? That we're seeing, right? And instantly, Bassett says, number 3. All right. Now, let's be clear. What he did in that moment was say, yes, it's extraterrestrial. Absolutely. That's exactly what he was saying. Which means that Tim Bassett, in that moment on that show, was the first member of Congress, sitting member of Congress. I can't speak to the retired ones, but the sitting member of Congress, while sitting, said matter-of-factly that there's an extraterrestrial presence. That was a pretty big deal, right? And then he backed it up. He started talking about cover-up, and then he got into the fact that religion can deal with it and all of this. He just really went on for about 12 minutes. And I'm going, wow, that's impressive. Thank you, Tim. And I sent him a nice tweet, thanking him for that. So that happened 2 days before. Okay, so now a couple of days go by, and it's hearing time. Leading up to the hearing, Carson made tweets, gave some interviews, kind of promoting it, but somebody else gave some quotes prior to the hearing, and that was a very important person by the name of Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is the chairman of the House Intel Committee, of which Carson's committee on counter-terrorism, counterintelligence, counter-proliferation, total national security is a chair, a subcommittee. But Adam Schiff is the head of the Intel Committee. He is a major figure in our Congress. Trust me. He comes out and supports what Carson is doing. He's saying, yes, good thing. We're going to do this. Interesting. But then he showed up at the hearing. He's sitting up there next to Carson. He doesn't have to do that, right? Carson just held the hearing. And so he's introducing it, and he's giving these positive remarks and so forth. And so what is happening there? Instantly, before the thing even is hardly underway, I realized something very important has just happened. Adam Schiff is making it absolutely clear to everybody else in Congress, every other committee chair, that he is going to hold a hearing in front of the Intel Committee. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of when he chooses to do it, but it's going to happen. And so if you're a committee chair of anything national security related, either the House or the Senate, and you're kind of thinking you want to get into this game and you want to get in as early as possible, yeah, do it, because I'm going to do it eventually. He's giving him a little space, but he's also putting him on notice. That was very significant.
Well, he got a couple questions in too.
Yes, he did. He did. He was basically part of it.
Yes.
So I noticed that. Okay, right away. That was pretty significant. The hearing gets underway, and it's pretty much exactly what I expected. It was basic. Bring 2 key people from the Pentagon who are overseeing this operation, which didn't yet have a director, but I understand that has now been announced. I think his name is possibly Fitzpatrick. Forgive me, I don't have it handy, but I did check the background of this person. He's got all the background you'd expect, but not necessarily any background in this phenomena, right? Whether he knows anything about this phenomena or has studied it himself, I don't know, but he's got all the other background. Other people can be brought in, maybe even from the civilian sector. We'll see about that. But so these are the people you'd bring up and ask some questions. How's it going? How are you responding to what Gillibrand and Rubio requested and setting this up and what have you? And that was fine. So far, so good. And so then, as the hearing went forward, I quickly noticed that there was not going to be any laughing. There was not going to be any eye rolling. There was not going to be any smirking. This was serious, and they were going to keep it serious. And of course, the 2 people testifying were serious. That was good. All right.
What did you, before we, let's stay at the front though, real quick. What did you think of Andre Carson's opening statements?
Excellent. Yeah. He is totally on board. Carson, let me tell you something. What you're literally seeing right now between Rubio and Gillibrand and Carson and even Tim Bassett, who is probably never going to sit on a committee on this issue because he's not in the right committees, you are seeing members of the Congress who have fully accepted intellectually this issue is going to get resolved, and they are starting to try to compete with who can get press, who can get out in front of it, who can make some statements, who can do something, because they understand this is going to be maybe the most profound political event ever, right? There have been hearings. I've watched many of them, the Iran-Contra hearings, the Vietnam hearings, the hearings about Iraq, and on, right? in the Watergate hearings. The hearings on this issue, bigger than all of them put together. So they're literally starting to compete with being ahead of the issue, being involved. And when politicians start doing that, my friend, it's game over. All right. We have been waiting all this time for that.
It was pretty. I don't do politics on this show, and I don't want to get the chat room and the comments going in that direction. But I will say this. I'll talk about the conspiracy of politics. There isn't any red or blue involved here. This is definitely, I mean, bipartisan isn't even a way to put it. This is a humanitarian issue. And that's the way I'm serious. There was nothing going on in that regard throughout the entire hearing. And I think it's going to continue this way. What do you think?
Absolutely. There was only one very short partisan comment that came from the ranking member right after Carson opened up. But other than that, absolutely nonpartisan. And let me follow up on that. Of the number of statements that Carson made before the hearing, this is one. This was reported in the Independent. I didn't see it anywhere else, but it probably was. Carson said, "I've gotten some chuckles," meaning referring to the fact that he's doing this. I have gotten some chuckles, but it's something I'm passionate about, and I think I can take the heat. This may be the very thing that brings Democrats and Republicans together, at least for an hour or two. Now, let me be clear. Those two sentences are way more important than most people might think.
I agree.
Very significant. He is not the only one that knows this, and I've been talking about that, I don't know, 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, whatever, all right? That the world is headed to hell in a handbasket, all right? We've been marching toward nuclear war since I was born.
Yeah, we're doing our best, aren't we?
And we got plenty of other problems that could be better addressed if we weren't spending trillions upon trillions of dollars on defensive and offensive military intelligence operations. And now, particularly in the United States, though we're not the only country suffering from this, we have slid, not surprisingly, into a multi-year hyper-partisan gridlock that has brought everything to a halt, thus allowing just about every conceivable social, economic problem to literally fester to the point of being lethal. I mean, it's a friggin' mess, and nobody really seems to have the slightest idea how to end it. And there are people in the Hill that are so frustrated they're just retiring, they're walking away, right? And I have said countless times, the only way out of this mess, not only the nuclear risk factor, but the hyper-partisan and also some of the other geopolitical issues that have got us literally locked down. We need a game-changing paradigm shift, and the only card in the deck right now that delivers that is disclosure. And so disclosure isn't just about finally saying, oh yeah, the ETs are here. Disclosure may be the solution to our fundamental problems. It may open the doors to the solutions that we simply can't get to. I believe that with respect to disclosure and respect to our situation, everything is at stake to getting this done. And it should have been done years ago. If we'd had disclosure during the Clinton administration or maybe even early in the Bush administration, we would not be facing down the calamities or handling the world issues that are coming up so badly that is causing more catastrophes. It would have been a different ballgame. But it is what it is. All right. So, but there's something else about this that's really important. Okay. One of the, aside from the risk of nuclear war and the resurging pandemic and the political things that keep literally happening, and you just put your face palm, double face palm. We're entering into what will be probably one of the most vicious election seasons of all time, and there's been some very strong competition for that mantle, and nobody's looking forward to this. I think a lot of people don't understand that while there's some pretty bad actors in politics on both sides, that there's plenty of good people. And running for office in this country now is a nightmare. It is awful. It is terrible. You have to first raise huge sums of money, prostitute the hell out of yourself, beg, borrow, and steal to get $500, $800, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2, $5, $8 million in order to, quote, win an election and be able to serve and get a salary of 160 or something. All right, that's bad enough. But then you've got to run this hyper partisan gamut where anything that could be done to destroy you is probably going to be done in order to get another 2 years in office. This is hell. To give you an example, and I couldn't believe this when I heard it. Please check it if you're not sure. But in a race, in a primary race, I think it was Wisconsin or Michigan, I'm not sure, a candidate to just win, in this case, the Democratic nomination, all right, spent in excess of $11 million to try to win the nomination that would allow him to then be in the election to be, it was either Senate or a governor. He lost. $11 million lost.
Well, it happens in every election and every election cycle. It's certainly something needs to be done about it. Again, I don't discuss politics on the show, but I'll say this. Term limits, that's it. And the same coffers on both sides. You get to spend X amount of money, and that's it. That's the end of the story. May the best person win. And I'm
not trying to make that the point. I'm simply saying I'm talking about what the people that do have to go through these elections is hell. And so when I thought about that, I'm going, so if you're going to have to go through that, if you're going to have to go through the hyper-partisan gamut heading into the election, what if these hearings were taking place? What if, in addition to people having to watch the endless ads and get all the endless emails asking them for money, suddenly there's these hearings going on about this amazing issue. It's very interesting, very positive and nonpartisan. And they're seeing members of both parties taking testimony from witnesses and asking intelligent questions,
right?
And being nonpartisan. That is not a bad thing. That's kind of a respite from the war, right? And so maybe having those hearings could actually be very helpful.
I totally agreed. I mean, that's the one point, right? If something's going to unite not only this country but the rest of the planet, it's the ET question getting resolved and moving into disclosure.
Yes,
I mean, a lot of things would a lot of negative energy that is being spent for the wrong reasons would just clearly go away. But let me ask you this before we head to the break. I know that there was a moment, I wasn't there, but if I was there, I would have seen the moment that you, Stephen Bassett, stood up and went, there, right? What was the moment when you jumped up?
I'm not the only one that jumped up at this moment. I know somebody just a few miles north of me that did. It was when Mike Gallagher, and he's doing his basic questioning, out of nowhere, he suddenly goes to Bray and he says, there were reports of a large glowing orb coming down and hovering over one of our nuclear facilities at Malmstrom, right? And the missiles got shut down. Are you aware of that?
Right.
And I'm going, man, Bob Salas just fell out of his chair.
Right.
This came out of nowhere. And I assure you, I seriously do not think Mike Gallagher is a pretty good guy. He's also a Republican, but a vet, Marine vet. He didn't go rogue here. I believe that very likely he let the committee know he was going to do this.
Yeah, he didn't go rogue. He didn't go rogue. I don't think well, not only that, you ever have a mosquito flying around and you got to do the thing? I'm going to do it live on camera the next time he sweeps by. So if you guys see me go whap whap. But he didn't waste any time though, did he? Because right after that, he goes Wilson Davis.
Yeah, this is he pops two things into play. He's the only one that really did that. Why? Well, for one thing, it clearly sent the message out there, similar to what Adam Schiff was doing. Folks, this is not the only hearing. All right, and we have, and these men are not men. I think there was no woman there. They're not showing up like, okay, what is this about? Oh, it's about UFOs, UAPs. Okay, let's what are we at? No, there's been briefings going on the Hill for years, right? Particularly going back to 2018. Thank you, Christopher Mellon. There's a lot that they know. They've gotten classified briefings, so they're coming into this, right, knowing more than you might know, and so this is planned. Now, another way of describing what's happening is that this is an orchestrated process going on between the Department of Defense primarily and the Congress of the United States. But by orchestrated, I don't mean they're passing emails back and forth and kind of planning everything. I mean that both sides know what the other side needs, and they're providing it to each other so that it can go forward in an orderly process, right? And so what he did there is let people know, we know about some things, like we know about the nuclear weapons tampering, which, by the way, happens to be the single most important action the ETs have ever taken that has the most significant national security aspect, and national security is the platform in which these hearings are going to be held.
Well, okay, so let me stop you right there, because we have two people from the Department of Defense called as the first witnesses.
That's right.
Both directing the investigations. The two of them.
Well, they're overseeing the investigations that are going to happen. Yeah,
they're directing. They're overseeing, and both of them claim they never heard of Malmstrom. Now, either we got the two wrong people right in these positions, or clearly they know, they have to know, and they just didn't want to talk about it at that moment. Which side of the fence are you on?
Oh, let me talk about this. I mean, how much time have we got, Jimmy? Am I okay here?
We've got 8 minutes.
Oh God, no problem.
Okay, not with you. That's a big problem.
Yeah, when they set up this AIMSOG, the worst name ever and the worst acronym ever produced by the Department of Defense, and everybody knows this, and the Twitter is pointed it out, which is why they're going to change it, and they go out of their way to tell you that it's going to be another name, meaning, oh my God, we got to get away from this. They needed people, long-serving people at high level in the Pentagon, and these guys, Bray and Moultrie, are high level to, quote, manage it. It's not like, oh, well, let's go to the unacknowledged special access programs and see who down there really knows the subject and bring them up and no, right? And so it's not likely that they know much at all, and the director that's going to be put in charge may not be that knowledgeable, right? Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to find some people to be involved in this group, right? That will advise them, that actually do know something about the issue and work within the Pentagon. Okay. In fact, I actually have some information about one person who does know a lot about the issue and is in the program. But remember, this is all still just coming together. All right. This is, they announced the program in November, and that's another story. I'll get back to that later. So it's just coming together, right? Again, it's a process. It is a public relations process. In other words, people say, well, why haven't you got this? Why haven't you got that? It's not about discovery. It's about going through a process to distance themselves from the truth embargo. It is public relations, right? Because they don't really want to invest a whole bunch of money and time in actually going out and studying the phenomena their government's already been studying for 70 years. So it's going to seem a little incongruous. That's what I was trying to get to earlier, Jimmy. Sure. Don't expect a brand new mega blue book thing. No, they already know. And so they're doing the process. Okay, so these guys come up. I really don't think that they knew about Malmstrom. But here is to give you an idea of how the truth embargo is and what it does to people. I'm going to imagine you're Scott Bray, and he brings that up to him. Scott, and he's on camera. This thing is being filmed. It's going to live with Scott forever. Okay, here's the situation he's in. These are his options. If he really doesn't know, he has to say that. I don't know. And a whole lot of people are going to laugh like hell and be very unhappy about that and give him a lot of grief. He is, and he's already getting grief. And that's not fun, but there's nothing he can do about it. So he's got that. He does that, okay? But let's say he does know. What are his options then? They're terrible. If he actually knew something or had heard about Malmstrom, and when he's asked that question, he goes back to Gallagher and says, yes, I'm aware of it. Instantly, he's telling everybody out there, yeah, we know about Malmstrom. I know about Malmstrom. And then the questions are, well, what the hell have you done about it? The Malmstrom case has been out there for 25 years. You know about it? That should have been first and foremost. We have 800 questions, right?
Sure. And what did you make of the body language between them two at that moment? I mean, I'm not an idiot. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm also not an idiot. And when I see one guy turn to another one going, you know about Malmstrom? No, I don't know. You know about that says it all. Right. Okay. They wanted to make sure that they did not talk about Malmstrom.
So Scott Bray cannot say that yes, I know. Yes, I do know something about it. What are his other options? The other option, which is something you're going to be hearing a lot of, and you've heard many times in the past, is that, yes, that is an area that I could only address in classified setting. He can't do that. If he says that, he's basically acknowledging, yeah, this is an issue. It's so important. It's classified. All right. And then everybody watching is going, okay, let's start asking a lot of hard questions about nuclear weapons tampering. And of course, Bob Salas is sitting there going, yeah. And so he can't do that either. So what does he have to do? He has to lie. He has to say, I don't know about it when I do know about it. Now, again, we all know, and Luis Elizondo has done this, 100 times, that there are things that you can respond in this way. I can't go there, but yes, I understand your question, but I can't really address that at this time.
Right.
Meaning it's classified. Okay.
Right.
But there are things that you cannot even do that to. All right. And that is the concept of unacknowledged special access or unacknowledged. It means that, this is something.
Stephen, Malmstrom wasn't any of that. That wasn't a special access program. It was.
No. I'm saying that the concept of the special unacknowledged special access program is that, I know a lot about it. I'm involved in it. I can't even acknowledge it exists. And so I'm going to lie right to your face. Okay.
Right.
The Malmstrom, the nuclear weapons tampering thing is such a major problem for the Pentagon and the Air Force, which is why they've tried to pretend that all of these witnesses don't exist. They have utterly refused to address this issue, right? For all of these years that these witnesses have been coming forward, I can tell you story upon story. In other words, this is something they simply can't deal with. I mean, they can't round up these witnesses and put them in a gulag somewhere in Alaska. They just, this is America. You don't do that. They
might. Hey, Stephen, we got to take a break. Let's get this in right here. I'll let you finish. I see that when you said how much time, I was like, no, it doesn't work that way around here with Stephen Bassett. We'll be right back after this short break. It is night one of UFO Hearing Week here on Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Stephen Bassett. I am your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, pour on ghee, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and the full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, night 1 of UFO Hearing Week. All week here on Fade to Black. Our guest tonight is Stephen Bassett of PRG. And there was only one person to start this week, and that was Stephen Bassett. There's no question about that. And now, Stephen, here's the deal. I just sent you a text on your phone.
Okay. I've got it turned off. Should I turn it on?
Just look at the picture. I just wanted to share a private moment with you.
Okay.
And, there you go.
This isn't a nude pic, is it? This is not a nude pic. You wouldn't do that to me.
No.
Okay, good.
I thought about it, though, Stephen, with you. But
all right, hang on.
And so there you go.
This is a text, you say?
Yes. It's a new thing. It's called texting. People do it.
Oh, there it is. That's looking good. All right, hang on a second.
See,
oh, there it is. Okay.
It's just the little things, Stephen. Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, man. That is. Oh, I have to have one of these, dude.
I know.
I have to have. Oh, nobody's going to be able to see this if I do this.
No, you know what? You shouldn't show it to anybody. That's private. Okay. Now, let's get back to the hearing.
Yeah.
What'd you make of the moment from Representative Welch when he brought up ET and extraterrestrials, where I felt that, I don't want this to be a long question, but the first half of the hearing, I think that both Bray and Moultrie were trying to make this a technology issue, possibly with adversaries. The second half of the hearing took a turn, and Representative Welch wanted to get things back on track, which was, this was a hearing about UFOs and ET. What did you think of that moment? We'll get to his second question, but his first was bringing up ET and extraterrestrials. What'd you make of that?
Again, imagine that these gentlemen are sitting up there and they know a lot more than you think. And they know how important this is. And they know that this is just the beginning. And you can imagine that there's just this urge, I should ask about this, right? But this process requires not getting out ahead of your skis. Just kind of stay within the lane, because for this to work, you've got to sort of take it in a way that is going to keep it relatively orderly and allow for the next step to take place. It's tough. I mean, there's any number of things they could have brought up which would have not been helpful. But you give him credit. He says extraterrestrial. First of all, he said extraterrestrial, not alien. Thank you. But again, that is another way, just like what Gallagher did, to let people know, folks, this is the real deal. Okay, we're not just going through the motions here. There was a time a member of Congress would never let the word extraterrestrial come out of their mouth. So I saw that as what was going on there. But let me get back to something I was trying to say before. It's very important. The point I was trying to make about Bray in that moment, right, and we need to talk about Wilson Davis, is that now the game is afoot. You've got members of Congress involved. They're being interviewed. They're going to sometimes be in hearings. You've got, obviously, high-level officials, including Avril Haines and Hicks and everything else, coming forward and getting involved in this as we go forward. And let me be clear. There are going to be many, many, many times in the coming weeks, and hopefully not more than a couple of months, when these people, under questioning, whether it's from a reporter or in a hearing or whatever else, are going to lie. It's just going to be that way, because they simply cannot tell the truth in that moment. And people say, well, wait a minute, this is a truth process. Isn't that what this is about? Getting disclosure is a truth thing. I get it. But what's going on here is a process in which they can get from a truth embargo that is still in effect now for 75 years to the point where the president of the United States can tell the world that, yes, there is an extraterrestrial presence. And that means going through hearings and bringing that together and have it go forward. And in order to do that, you've got to stay within the lane. And so, as I said, I think it was picked up by Politico recently in an article that some stuff they wrote about me and maybe elsewhere. One way to look at it is that, maybe it's unfortunate or maybe whatever, the DOD and the Congress is going to have to lie their way out from under a much bigger lie, all right, in service of the greater good. I am perfectly happy with that. All right. If that's what it takes, and it's going to take that in order for them to do their roles and not get into areas that are going to create problems, they're going to have to do this. And so it's very possible Bray lied in that moment. All right. But you're going to see a lot more of that. And because there's going to be situations where they simply can't say, I'm under NDA, that's classified, I can't go there. No, because that is going to create issues ahead of where they need to go. And so a lot of people are going to get upset. I'm saying, don't get upset. Enjoy the ride. Now, the other thing that Gallagher did, we need to talk about. As soon as that was over, he immediately introduces the Wilson Davis notes. Now, this is something else again. All right. Why the Wilson Davis notes? Well, first of all, that's not an ET event or UAP event, right? Which is a huge deal. This is an inside event in which people who are operating deeply in the classified world had a correspondence or an engagement that ended up getting out because it got eventually into the files of Edgar Mitchell and it was pulled out of there, right? Because Edgar Mitchell was involved in the initial approach to Wilson in the first place. And so it's a very controversial thing, the Wilson Davis notes, all right? But what a lot of people who don't know about the Wilson Davis notes, they see that, they go, what does this mean? Here's what they need to know. If what is in the Wilson Davis notes could be confirmed, boom, right? The hearings would have to start a whole lot sooner, and they would be really intense because that is really heavy duty stuff.
All of it.
All of it. Okay. But it can't be confirmed. The nuclear weapons tampering is confirmed because you got all kinds of witnesses, SAC base offers that were there when it happened, and they've come forward with affidavits. I've got a bunch of the affidavits sitting on my desk right now. But the Wilson Davis, the only people that were there was Wilson and Davis. And so it can't be confirmed. Oh, it is, right? There's a lot of things we've learned over 70 years that can't be confirmed that will prove to be true. All right. But wow, what do you got here? First of all, Eric Davis has been inside on so many heavy-duty things that are interesting and exotic and classified. He is a heavy hitter. And Wilson, if you look into his background, he was involved in so many high-level positions. I mean, his resume is gold, right? He's top dog. Okay, so it's apparently, according to the notes, they met in a car, and Davis had a conversation with him, which I believe he transcribed later. He wasn't sitting there with a pen. All right, I'm pretty sure about that. And if I'm wrong, somebody will correct me. All right, and those notes really weren't supposed to see the light of day. I guess maybe it was just for Davis' purposes, but they ended up finally working their way, ultimately came out through Edgar Mitchell's files after he died. And then, of course, it created quite a storm. And they've given a lot of examination and a lot of analysis, but it comes down to this for me. It's not complicated. Admiral Wilson was asked about this, and he basically said the meeting never happened. What was in those notes, anything regarding me, was false. Okay, which is a bit of a problem because you see, I was aware of, I mean, I knew about that stuff happening back then. I knew about Mitchell and Greer approaching Wilson. I knew it when it happened. And so that was out there. And there's two eyewitnesses. One is dead, but one's still alive. And there may be a couple of other people that are tangential that can confirm that Wilson was approached to look into some USAPs to see what was going on. And he was told basically, you think you have access, go away. You don't. So whatever else was in the notes, that I think is supported. Okay. And so, but also there's this. Eric Davis has been pretty adamant that he's not going to talk about it. He's been asked repeatedly. He's not going to speak to it. Interesting. And so let's quickly say this. If I am Eric Davis with my background and all that I've been involved in, and somebody comes up and completely falsifies a bunch of notes that totally not true, not having anything to do with Davis, and puts that out there, I wait about 5 minutes before I go public and deny it. You do not let that sit. All right, that's ridiculous. And so, and I think plenty of people on the Hill know that, and I think Gallagher knows that. And so he put those notes into play. But something else happened. He asked Bray. Bray says, I don't know about that. And then he immediately turns to Carson and says, I want to put these notes, copy of these notes into the record without objection. Carson says, without objection.
Now, what did you make of that moment? I mean, I was pretty surprised. I'm sure that Richard Dolan fell out of his chair. But what did you make of that? If going into the record, does that mean in the future, if somebody brings up the Davis document, Wilson Davis, and they say they're not aware of it, can you immediately reference, well, it's part of the record?
Sure.
And it's there for you to read. Is that one of the reasons for it?
Sure. It's a much bigger deal than I think people understand.
Right.
When you hold a hearing, everything that's said in that hearing by the members, committee members, and by the witnesses is on the record, right? I think it actually gets transcribed. But anything in print or document or something else can be submitted in the record, right? And so if he doesn't do that, that statement that he made about the fact that there was this controversial document and Bray's response, I don't know about it, would have gone in the record, but not the Wilson Davis notes. He turns and puts them in the record. So now they are formally in the record which sets them up very nicely for hearing. And it's a number of people have tweeted appropriately on UFO Twitter, which is where you want to go if you really want to follow, I think, the main Twitter thread on this, and it's growing like crazy, is that, Eric Davis is going to have to come up on the Hill and testify about that. All right. And you don't want to know something? I think Eric Davis would be happy to do that. One of the things about the truth embargo that people need to understand, because of the nature of the truth embargo, there are a large number of people, both in politics and in national security, that have a lot of things they could say. And on occasion, they are bumped about it, meaning, do you know something about that? Or I heard you were involved in that. That are simply not going to speak. They do not need that grief. They do not need to be trolled on the internet or whatever else you have to put up with, right? Because just saying it to somebody or a researcher or even a reporter, what's going to come from that?
Nothing.
But if they are asked to come on the Hill and testify as part of a formal process to bring this information out under oath in an orderly process, they are going to do it. And I think that if I'm Eric Davis, my attitude is, look, I'm not going to talk about this, but if you ask me to come to the Hill and testify under oath, fine, I'll come up and tell you about those notes and probably a lot of other things. And so that's what I took away from that. Very significant, and pointing down the line. Okay. What the other question?
Is the second half of Representative Welch was probably just as crazy as the first half. The second question was that, okay, if you don't want to discuss ET or extraterrestrials visiting our planet here in the public hearing, will we be discussing it later this afternoon in the classified briefing?
I forgot about that. What was the response from Bray or Moultrie?
That was the response.
Interesting. Okay. So I kind of missed that. I need to go back and probably watch that thing again a little tighter. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I'll say that I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. But Bray at that point changed his tune a little bit, in that the door was starting to crack open, and he said, "Of course, I'm interested in extraterrestrials and ET visiting this planet, and I am going to go where the evidence takes me during these investigations." Okay. And then Moultrie echoed that answer. And for me, I would have loved to have been at the classified briefing to see if this was indeed brought up. But it was a moment where I think Welch got this hearing going in another direction. And we are definitely talking about ETs and extraterrestrials here. We're not talking about your job that you should be doing, which is our airspace and the safety of our military in this country.
They're talking about those things, but the ET issue is just looming behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there is the process and the setting up and the programs and all that stuff, which I told you is basically an orchestrated thing in order to try to minimize the blowback for the politicians and the DOD. So they're talking about that, but the ET thing is always hanging behind. And Welch, I think, he put that out there. So he between Welch and between Gallagher, clearly they're letting a lot of people that are paying attention, including other members of Congress and other committee members, that this isn't going to stop here. We have much more we're going to be doing coming down the line. So that, and that's fine. And again, I have empathy for Bray and for Moultrie. They come up on that Hill to try to represent the current status of what the DOD is doing under requests by two Appropriations Act coming out of the House and Senate. Both of them being initiated by the Senate, Gillibrand and Rubio, but then Gallego comes in and gets the House involved, and they're sitting on this massive thing, and they're just they can't address this massive thing. They just need to kind of tell the Congress what's going on over at the DOD, but they're not in a position to answer the 10,000 questions that will ultimately be asked, and they've got to navigate that. And I have a lot of appreciation for that, and they did the best they could.
Yeah, I sort of do, except I'm saying sort of. I think that both Bray and Moultrie expected to be able to just go in and phone it in.
Maybe.
And that they were just going to skate through this. I don't think that they were prepared for the directions of things. Number
How could
one,
they have been though? How could they have been? How could they possibly have prepared?
No,
for
I'm just
all
saying,
of the
they were expecting to just go in and do 90 minutes and phone it in and get out of there.
Okay.
And I think the evidence for that. Now the committee, now it's different. The committee was there to, they meant business.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I think that the unpreparedness showed with that video.
Oh yeah. I want to talk about those videos for sure.
Let's go. I mean, totally unprepared. No slow motion, no freeze frame, no screen grabs, nothing. Unprepared. Couldn't find it. What are we looking at? Are we looking at that? What is it that we're trying to see here? And we had to deal with that for 5 or 10 minutes, wasting time because they weren't prepared. What did you think?
Yes, I mean, again, this fits. Remember the perspective that I have on this. What I've said earlier, right? You have to constantly keep that in mind. But before I, what was I going to say? Okay. Let me go to the videos. They knew that they had to come up with something. They couldn't just walk up into that hearing knowing all the massive expectations that were out there and not have something, right?
That's right.
Something, little pizzazz, referring to evidence. Okay. But again, they have to be very careful because there's a process underway and you need to kind of stick with that process. If you step outside of it, all kinds of problems can develop. And so they brought 2 videos with them. God bless them. Now they could have brought much more powerful videos, right? Just the tic-tac alone and bringing that back up would have been intense because that thing has been viewed by hundreds of millions of people. I don't know. It's been viewed billions of times around the world, in my view. It's everywhere. You can't get away from it. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of discussion. We know a lot about it. You bring that up, you're opening up to a whole bunch of things and questions that they don't want to get into. So they brought up 2 videos. And what's amusing about it is that the vast majority of the public wouldn't have an idea what those videos really meant or how important they might be, and they don't really show that much. And they would go, nothing. I don't know what to do with that. But the people that know a lot about this subject would have understood that there was something important there, but it wasn't going to come out in that hearing. Now, what am I referring to? The one that has the thing going by the jet at a gazillion miles an hour, and they can't even slow it down, and they didn't have it prepared because I don't think they thought there was going to be that much pressure to actually see the damn thing. They could have had a screenshot, right? So that was awkward. That was a mistake on their part. I hope there's mistakes they made that I hope the next people from the DoD come up don't make. What? I mean, so boom, there it is. What does that mean? Nobody is thinking that's a special thing, except if you're following all of this, and a lot of people on UFO Twitter are, you know that what's shot by that jet has been reported by a number of pilots in some detail. And what that was a transparent sphere with a black cube in the middle of it that the pilot said it seemed like the edges of the black cube were actually touching the sphere with no means of propulsion, all right? Going very, very fast. And so, in fact, that video is representative of something very, very evidentially powerful. In fact, pilots, and I believe Ryan Graves is talking about this. I forget. I need to check on that. There's a pilot out there that's been giving some tremendous information. It turns out that, you got the Tic Tacs that have been seen a lot, but these spheres have been seen a lot. In fact, you have reports from pilots where these spheres with the black cube in it, moving how the hell, we don't know, would be traveling in formations of like 6, like maybe you saw in the Phoenix Lights. And then behind it would be a craft somewhat like the gimbal or maybe even the Tic Tac that's kind of almost like it's being escorted. All right. So this sphere thing is a big deal. Well, that was what was in that film. We'll be hearing more about that later, but it wasn't a big deal in terms of the press conference or the hearing. Now let's talk about the other video. What do you got there? Well, what you got there is a Navy warship that's filming some stuff at night in infrared, and there's things flying around. Okay. And Okay, what does that mean? And not hard to know. And then Moultrie kind of went a little further than he had before. He got into the, I guess, explanation mode, which they shouldn't have done. But he starts to talk about, well, it could be drones, and the way the light bounces off and goes through the infrared camera, whatever. It ends up, it kind of looks like a triangle. I'm going, really? Okay. But that's not what was important. What was important is they were showing you an instance where a bunch of things were flying around a Navy warship, right, at night, that was being picked up certainly on infrared. I don't know if it was being seen. And most people watching that would have not considered the fact that you don't fly around a Navy warship. You can't see. You don't approach it with a canoe or a kayak or a motorboat. You don't approach it with a Cessna 102. You don't get near it at all. And if you do, you're going to get warned off. And if in a very short amount of time, you're going to get blown out of the water, out of the sky. And commanders of Navy warships that allow their ship to be approached in a way by things they don't get, that don't deal with that, they lose their command. Okay. I don't know what happened to of course, it was docked, right? I don't know what happened to the commander of I think it was a destroyer that was blown. A boat came up in Yemen while it was docked and blew a hole in the side, killed a bunch of servicemen. Yeah, he probably lost that command, but you just don't do that. And so what you're supposed to be seeing is some of their high rapid fire guns just blowing these things out of the sky, right? But wasn't happening. And so in that sense, it was a lot more significant. And I think some people, I've actually heard this, people thinking, well, man, who's out there, in a boat, maybe, or a motorboat that's cruising out to have a little fun with the Navy, and they're launching some drones off of their little boat and having them fly around their ship to have some fun. Actually, we've seen that happening in the United States near some of our airports. No, there's nobody doing that. So again, safe videos that actually have significance if you know enough, but it's not going to create a problem during the hearing. So that's what I saw about that. Now, let me tell you something else that happened in this hearing that was non-trivial.
Okay, we've got 30 seconds, Stephen, before the break.
Okay, I'll just give you the tip, and then afterwards involves Tim Burchett. All right, the one that went and had that interview with Leland Vittard and basically said there's extraterrestrials here in answering one of his questions. All right, and so Tim Burchett actually plays a role in the hearing, which was rather interesting, and is on. You can find that online. And after the break, I'll kind of explain.
Yeah. It's a key moment for me. There is nothing like armchair quarterback at a UFO hearing.
Absolutely.
And we'll do all of that when we come back. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, the one and only Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group. It's night one of our UFO hearing week. We're doing it all week long here on Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Poranki, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and a full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. It is the UFO hearing week here on Fade to Black tonight. Stephen Bassett is with us tomorrow night, Sean Cahill, and a very special guest. Wednesday night, we have Ron James here from MUFON. And then Thursday night, of course, is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And right now, Stephen and I, right before the break, were discussing, when I say armchair quarterback, right, the aftermath of the hearing. And Representative Burchett didn't pull any punches. He didn't pull one punch back. He let it fly, didn't he?
Well, what happened is that Tim came down to watch the hearing. Okay, he was in the audience. He's not on the committee, and so naturally he knew the press because of what he had said on Vidder's show on News Nation. He knew they were going to come up to him, so he's got 3 or 4 press around him, and he starts to tee off, and he basically is saying, this hearing was just, they didn't go far enough. We need witnesses up here. He mentions cover up, and this thing has got to get, and he's just doubling down completely. All right. And that's fine. Okay. So that's what, so this wasn't an accident. So literally what I'll say again, you're going to see members of Congress starting to compete with who can get out in front of this issue the most, who can say the most, which brings up another point. When Bassett said on that show, he answered number 3. That answer says there's an extraterrestrial, but he didn't say it matter-of-factly. Okay, you may see a member of Congress very soon go in front of a camera and say, I think there's extraterrestrials here, or I know there's extraterrestrials here. That will be pretty cool, and that will help to advance the disclosure process and these hearings. Is that disclosure? It is not. A member of Congress saying there's extraterrestrial here is not going to trigger a whole bunch of very important things that would fall from that. It just doesn't have the gravitas. It doesn't have the power. Disclosure, capital D, can only come from the head of state. That triggers a huge array of things unfolding and takes us where we have to go. However, if a member of Congress wants to make the statement ahead of time, no problem. So look for more of this, okay? And then along these lines, I'd like to mention something that is I think, always bugged me. There is somebody that did say there was an extraterrestrial presence here. And I mean somebody fairly well known and high up. And I'm referring to billionaire Robert Bigelow, who was the first billionaire to ever say there's extraterrestrials here. Okay. He did it in May of 2017 and in front of millions of people, right? Many more than Tim Burchett was in the audience on News Nation. And he did it on 60 Minutes to Laura Logan. And he said twice, there's extraterrestrials here. That was a pretty big deal, May of 2017.
60 Minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, air 60 Minutes. Okay, well, there was some press coverage of that. A little here, a little there. It's all archived on my website. Wasn't that big a deal, and we just moved on. Okay, fine. Okay. Now, 7 months later, the New York Times articles come out. Whoa, announcing the programs, the ATIP, OSAP, right? Harry Reid, the $22 million, and very quickly we learned that Bigelow was a key aspect of this. That a lot of that money went to do, including OSAP, which is getting into the Skinwalker Ranch and some of the, I guess you could say, quote, paranormal things, and as well as UAPs and ATIP. Some of that money went to him. I don't think it all went to him, but he was doing a lot of research as part of that program under contract with the DoD. And the emphasis, the most important thing that came out was he was doing materials research. He set up a lab at Bigelow Aerospace, and he's doing materials research on materials that were provided to him by the DoD. Okay, he was part of the program. He was inside.
About that, he has since denied it, and so has everybody else that there was any materials there. I think
really,
that, yeah,
I need to see that fleshed out because I remember early on.
We all do. We all remember that. I'm saying that now. It's a different tone when it comes to the materials.
Well, we know he was involved.
But
okay.
Of course we do.
Okay.
And so that 5 month period though was even more extraordinary than that because that happened in May. Then two things happened in October that were huge. One, Tom DeLonge had his live press conference.
TTSA.
And number two, probably even bigger than all of that, Oumuamua shows up and does its drive-by. Well, wait a minute.
I'm not a big fan of Oumuamua.
You don't have to be, but the press was.
Yeah, no, the press is jumping on everything now. Anything they'll jump on.
All of this was happening at the same time, Stephen. Yeah. All of it.
Well, yeah, no, there's always something happening. But I always tend to focus on those things that I can connect very clearly to the disclosure process. Look, when To the Stars Academy came out, it was a big deal, but Bigelow was not mentioned. He was not part of the Academy, and he wasn't mentioned. He doesn't get mentioned until the New York Times articles come out. And so, but here is the point I'm trying to make, and this is so representative of how the truth embargo has survived for 75 years. All right, so all this comes out. And you would think that an editor, a publisher, a reporter, a news talk show host, or whatever would have said, "Oh, wait a minute! This guy who was involved with the DoD's effort to look at this subject for years and received millions of dollars to do research and so forth, didn't he say 7 months ago on 60 Minutes there was an extraterrestrial presence here?" Which means that maybe that's exactly what he meant, that in fact was not some joke he was playing, and that's kind of a big deal. But they didn't. I watched the news. It was like no connections. Anybody made this connection. And I'm going, oh, man, you give me a break.
It was a gift. It was a gift. And I totally agree. It was a gift. There was a lot of, I think that the media, even though they were covering it, and they certainly saw through the clicks and the way that the public paid attention to this, that this was something that the world cares about for sure. But the reporters and the journalists out there were still testing the water, Stephen. Nobody really wanted to dip their toe in. There was, and go straight after this. You had Blumenthal, you had Leslie Kean, but I'm talking about what you're referencing, which was everybody else.
Let me speak to that. Look, the New York Times did more than stick their toe in the water in December 16, 17 with that. In fact, they made a major play there, knowing that it was going to be pretty big. But the question is, why did they not also address the statement by Bigelow the moment that he was brought out. The Washington Post should have done the same thing. And
That's
the reason
my
is
point, though. But
I know.
that's exactly my point. Nobody wanted to dip their toe in the water. It was a gift. Let me give you another gift that happened shortly after that. A year later, one of the follow-up articles by the New York Times has the earlier referenced Dr. Eric Davis buried in the article, literally is quoted in the New York Times saying, I had classified briefings with the Senate and told them we have crashed flying saucers not of this earth. And you see something like that. Where's the follow-up on that? Okay. Where's the Washington Post? Where's the LA Times? Any reporter in the world, and to this day, has let that go. If Wilson Davis is now part of the public record, and Davis does have to come forward, that is a question that needs to be followed up on by either the Senate Intelligence Committee or the House. They need to go back and say, didn't you say, aren't you referencing the New York Times saying that you briefed us about crash flying saucers? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, it's good. The point I was trying to make was this, and I've talked about this many times before. The American journalism made a decision way back that became institutionalized, that they would cover this issue. They would write about it. And they've written thousands and thousands of articles. I know this because I've got 12,000 archived on my website right now. Mm-hmm. But they would not investigate. In other words, something happens, we'll write it up, we'll write it up, we'll write it up. And there's a whole lot of things that happened and they wrote it up. But they were not going to investigate. And they knew that because that would be pressing on the truth embargo, and they knew the government does not want that out. And so that was the compromise that somehow or another they sort of came to somewhat on their own. And there have been countless instances where they didn't follow up and investigate, thousands of them. And that's how, one of the ways the truth embargo has survived. But the point I'm making about Bigelow is that there's been a lot of things that they have not followed up on, particularly the nuclear weapons tampering. But this one was so stark, right? In other words, this is the representative example that I'm putting out there now for all those other thousands of things which are not so obvious. You've got somebody that says on 60 Minutes, there's extraterrestrials here. He gets connected 7 months to the investigation and this big, huge story, and nobody starts, and 50 reporters, 100 reporters should have gone straight to Bigelow and said, we want to know more, right? Why did you say that? And they didn't do it. And I'm not trying to say you is the thousands of instances where these papers and these very good journalists and also the talk shows, the news media, the news shows, have not chosen to follow up is one of the reasons, a key reason why the truth embargo has lasted. And I hope that after disclosure takes place, that every reporter and editor and publisher and owner of owners of the news networks, cable and so forth, step back and think about that and ask themselves, are we ever going to do that again?
Well, okay. So back to Burchett, yes, which is what we were talking about 15 minutes ago. Yep. There were three things that he said post-hearing that I want to directly address. Number one, he called the hearing a sham. And I'm not paraphrasing here. And he said that the American public needs to know the truth. This cover-up by our government has gone on for too long, and this ends now. Yeah. That was the direct statement. And then he turned to the cameras because he was pointing. And he said, I'm angry. I'm not pointing at you guys. I apologize for that. I'm just upset. This hearing was a sham. Burchett is he rolling the dice, or is he saying what needs to be said in that we need more hearings and we can't be satisfied?
Well, he's saying something that I and many of my colleagues have said repeatedly, except that he is a sitting member of Congress. In other words, this isn't 1993, 4, 5, and Stephen Schiff trying to get information out of the Army about Roswell and be given a runaround and embarrassed and getting angry about it. No. We are in the last days and months of the truth embargo. There's 535 members of the House and Senate. Okay, this is the biggest issue of all time. And we've crossed the Rubicon. Disclosure is now on its way. And any number of those 535 people can make a decision tomorrow. They're going to do the same thing that Bassett is doing. He's not a particularly well-known member of Congress. He sits on 3 kind of basic committees that are not really involved in national security. They're the nuts and bolts committees about getting stuff done. And he's made the decision, okay, I may not be part of these hearings, but I have some strong views about this. And maybe I've read Stanton Friedman and Richard Dolan, a whole bunch of these books. I may have a giant library about this subject in my basement, and I'm stepping into it. I'm stepping into it big time. And so Tim is guaranteed that he is going to be getting a whole lot of interviews going forward, because every new thing that happens, the journalists have got him right in his Rolodex. They got to call Tim. What do you think about it? And that's great. I love it. But we need to see more. We need to see more Tim Bassetts coming forward. Everyone that does guarantees that these hearings may take place this summer, which brings back to another point that I forgot to mention.
Well, but hold on, you didn't answer the question. So let me ask again. He said the cover-up has been going on and by our government, and it has to end now.
Absolutely, that's what's going on. It's ending now. Now, I think what I'm going to do is tweet him, because I tweeted him the other day and he responded. I'm going to tweet him and say, Tim, look, use truth embargo, right? And the only reason is that truth embargo is the more appropriate term, and it's a little less damning of the DOD. And right now the DOD is trying to play ball, so let's give him a little slack, okay? But nevertheless, he made his point. And he was kind of speaking, by saying cover up and UFOs, he's speaking to the interested public, the people that watch your show and so forth. So anyway, again, this is there's going to be more of this, and that's great.
Well, he also, okay, before we get to the break, don't worry, everybody, we're doing overtime. We've never not done overtime with Stephen Bassett. He also brought up the video and how disappointed he was with the lack of preparation. Again, calling out the representatives there for not making sure that these witnesses are prepared and not wasting everybody's time.
It was the first. He was the first sitting member of Congress to basically say there's extraterrestrials here. And he's the first sitting member of Congress to has found an opportunity to go and blast. I think, look, Schiff, way back, did give some interviews where he's blasting the GAO and the Army from giving him the runaround on trying to do his job, which is he wanted to get the documents. He wanted to get records about Roswell. He was a New Mexico congressman. He was doing his job. He was a former Army vet. But Bassett has gone much further than this. Schiff was upset because he wasn't getting the records. Bassett is upset because there's a truth embargo and it needs to end now. Okay, but that's 30 years. It's taken 30 years to get from Schiff to Bassett. Okay, much too long, but it's almost over. Let me get to that point I want to mention. It's probably the last point, and after that, it's your game, Bill. I ask anything you want.
Finally,
is that if there, I think a lot of these members, the righteous ones, both sides, both parties, who are looking at this deeper and deeper, may be coming to a conclusion that I have come to. That this effort needs to get disclosure this summer. And here's the reason. If we can get it done this summer, and the President of the United States can make the announcement and confirm it, then that means that all of the candidates running for all 435 congressional seats, the candidates now, they've been nominated, probably be nominated by then, and then all of the 33 members running for the Senate will be able to speak to this issue to their constituents. or to the, well, not also constituents, but also just to the audience. They want to get elected, and they're going to be able to answer questions about, what do you think, sir, madam, about the fact that we're not alone, that this has been confirmed? What are your thoughts? How do you think we should respond? What kind of policies and so forth? And therefore, the whole ET presence issue literally becomes manifested throughout the entire election process in a transparent way. And it's nonpartisan. It's something people can look at and go, yeah, please tell me, what do you want to do about this, without expecting to get some hyper partisan dog and pony show, right? It's going to be extremely valuable, and the whole world will be watching this take place. The potential value of having this part of the campaign is enormous, and all they have to do is get to the point when the president can make the confirmation. And here's another point I want to make. If those hearings take place, establishing an evidentiary base in front of the entire world that are watching them intensely, going on for weeks, so that the president can say, it's clear from the evidence to me, my aides, and others, and leaders in Congress, that the evidence is conclusive. Extraterrestrials are here. This phenomenon is in fact that, and you need to know more. That way, it's not going to be partisan. In other words, for the president to watch that testimony along with everybody else and make the decision, it clearly concludes that there's an extraterrestrial presence, but I won't confirm it until after the election. In other words, I have to wait until after the election to confirm what people are already seeing. That is political. That is hyper political, and a huge mistake. It's not his fault that he's a Democrat in the presidency right now. He is. If it was a Republican, the Republican would have the same problem. Right. But this whole thing has a way of taking the partisanship out, even on the announcement itself. And then all of the discussions, debates, and questions that will come after that in the remaining weeks or months of this campaign will tend to emphasize and provide this nonpartisan platform for all of these candidates and the journalists to finally be unleashed to say what the hell they really think and what they know and what they think should happen. It's going to be the most cathartic political moment in American history.
That's right. That's a non-trivial point. It's one of the biggest situations that confront us right now, and it's huge, and it shouldn't be dismissed. And for me, the other big non-trivial takeaway is the third point, which was actually Burchett's first in his rant, pointing fingers with the media, was that he said, those two guys, that's what we did at this hearing. We need to bring forward real witnesses that can be protected, that don't have to fear about their job or their future or being ridiculed, and they need to be protected. That's who we need to bring forward. And again, a non-trivial point. That's exactly what we need at the next hearing. And Burchett, who's not a member of the committee, who was just an audience member, was saying everything that needed to be heard.
Okay, let me add some nuance to that. If I were, by the way, I did tweet Burchett and said I'd like to talk with him sometime. He said, yes, sir, that's fine. I'm in LA right now working on a pretty big deal. And yeah, I could not get back to Washington for that. I felt bad about that, but it's okay. I'll get back in good time and hopefully be in a position where I can meet with all of the members that have spoken out about this. But first, I got to get some things done, and people need to rediscover me, because it's sort of, if I've fallen out of a lot of Rolodexes. But here's what I would have said to him. Look, Tim, the witnesses don't need protection. All right. They're not criminals. And this process is now moving forward in a positive way. Any witnesses that come before the Congress, right, is going to be a military witness, and they're going to speak to what they know and what they have seen. And we know a lot of these have already said these things in other venues. They've just never said it under oath. And so they come up and they're sitting there and they're asked questions, and they'll give truthful answers because these are good men and women. And if there is something that they cannot speak to because there's an NDA involved, they don't need some amnesty or truth and reconciliation program at that point. They'll simply say, I can only speak to this in classified session. And then they'll get to say it in classified session, and we'll learn about it at the appropriate time later. I don't want to put that out that they need protection, because it gives the wrong impression about that. And you're telling these witnesses, you know, you need protection. And that's not helping them be comfortable about this.
No,
right?
but that's what they are worried about. The witnesses.
Who's worried about it?
The witnesses. If they're
not.
I
know these. I talked about these witnesses. They are not worried. Look, the only protection they need is from internet trolls, maybe, that want to give them a hard time, or skeptics out there. They do not need protection from the legal establishment or the DOD or any of that. They are not criminals.
I disagree. Look what happened to Lou Elizondo. He's had his emails vaporized. He's had Susan Goff step up to the podium and literally lie about him. And we're talking about, that's the Pentagon. So we can't talk about blowback. There is blowback, and there are people that are going to stop, do everything that they can to stop this. And if you do step forward, somebody is going to be in the background wanting to cause trouble. And those witnesses need to know. That's what they're afraid of. And they should be afraid.
Look, the activist in me has got to push back at you, Jimmy. Look, you cannot compare the situation regarding witnesses coming for these committees and Lou Elizondo. Lou Elizondo got out in front of the public on this in December of 2017, well before the hearing process was even a possibility. And he has been exposed for 5 years as the lead guy and spokesperson. The witness situation is totally different. The Senate intel, here's what's going to happen. The Senate intel,
suggesting that people have never been afraid to talk about this subject because they never cared about ridicule or losing their jobs.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying.
I mean, let's be very for real here. A career person in the military who is not supposed to talk about this, historically, on the record, that is the deal. Now, suddenly the page is being turned here. No, they need reassurances.
Well, I'm going to reassure them everything's going to be fine. Again, here is what's going to happen. The Senate or House Intel Committee is going to announce they're going to hold a substantial hearing on this, and they're going to be bringing witnesses on the Hill, all right, to testify under oath before the hearing process. This is not, and there's going to be millions of people watching, lots of journalists watching, and they're not going to come up one at a time. There's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're going to take an oath, and they're going to tell what they know. And I'm going to make a very highly confident prediction. They will become instantly heroes worldwide, every single one of them. And they're not going to be hung out for 2 or 3 years to be trolled by skeptics. They're going to be praised, and they're not going to have to break any laws, and they're going to be able to say what they want and appropriately, because at that moment that those hearings take place, that is the moment in which the Congress and the DOD and everybody else of any significance have essentially confirmed that it is time for the truth to come out. And then they're going to be followed by additional hearings and more witnesses. There'll be 10, 20, 30, 40. And so what is some idiot ass troller on Twitter going to do, right? Are they going to gang up on all 20 witnesses and go out and say, oh, these people are making it up? If they do that, the counter Twitter response will be brutal. They will be eviscerated, right? They will be treated by the idiots and fools that they are. And so it's important that it's at least important for me to make it clear that the witnesses that are going to participate in these hearings, even the ones that come over from the DOD, like Bray and Moultrie, they are not going to have to go through what Elizondo has gone through, or what Stephen Schiff went through 30 years ago, or any of the ordeals that occurred during the truth embargo. They are participating not in the truth embargo, they are participating in ending it. And it's going to be seen that way, and they are going to be heroes. And the chances of anything truly negative coming out is remote. Now, let me follow up.
Well, we're okay. Let's save it for overtime. We're 30 seconds past the commercial. So let's get that.
Sorry.
This is what
I hope you don't lose any money.
Stephen Bassett. We'll be right back after this short break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're heading into overtime with Stephen Bassett of PRG. Night one of UFO Hearing Week here on Fade to Black. Stay right there. We will be right back after this short break.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. And I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can right now get your own free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Heading into overtime with Stephen Bassett of PRG. Big day last week on the 17th. We had a UFO hearing on Capitol Hill, and something that Stephen has been pushing for decades. And it finally happened. But I want to get back to something that you said right before the break, Stephen, and I don't want this to get away from me. And normally when we get to overtime, I like to have a little bit of fun, but I just don't see it going in that direction tonight. It's too serious. But you said something in the last segment where you said that the witnesses would be coming from the military. Is that what you expect, or shouldn't we be hearing from others too as well outside of the military? Japan Airlines, bring those pilots up. Let's bring some other witnesses forward that have seen some pretty extraordinary things with video and witnesses to back these things up.
Sure, we should be hearing from a huge range of people, and in time we will. But most of those people will be turning up after disclosure, in the hearings that follow disclosure itself, and there will be plenty of those. Right now, remember, as I told you, what's going on now, it's not about discovery. It's not about proving the ET presence by holding hearings. It's a public relations process designed to get out from under this truth embargo with a minimum amount of damage, all right? So with respect to that, a couple of things that service that goal is, one, the platform for the hearings needs to be politically safe. It needs to be something that any member of Congress would have no problem addressing. And guess what that platform is? It is the potential national security threat of these things flying around and not knowing supposedly what they are. National security is very safe, so that's part of it, right? Whether one thinks they're a threat or not doesn't matter. And then the second thing is this: these hearings need to be as well received as possible, and they need to be as impactful as possible. The absolute best witnesses are military. You've already seen examples of that. Civilian pilot sees something, yeah, okay, fine. Maybe you had too much to drink that day, shouldn't have been flying. But an F-18 jockey who is out there flying off an aircraft carrier and he sees something like the Tic Tac, that is way more significant. But in terms of the hearing, it's this. Look, and military witnesses, when they sit down in that chair, and there's plenty of them, right? There's plenty of military witnesses, and just the nuclear tampering witnesses alone, right? And there's a number of them that will probably come forward we don't even know about. And thank God the hearings are happening now, because a lot of the officers are dying because they're in their 80s. But there's still a number of them around. When they sit down in that chair, they have already given an oath to serve the country in the national defense of the country. They are righteous men and women. And then they have to take another oath, all right, to tell the truth in front of the committee members. So
what about Halt, Peniston, and Burroughs?
They are military, and they could very well. And when I say military witnesses, I mean they could be retired, they could be active, but if they had what they're talking about is connected to their military service, all right. And Halt, Peniston, and all those, yeah, they're potential witnesses, particularly in the nuclear weapons tampering area. So when these men and possibly some women actually start telling what they know to Congress with millions of people watching, the power is triple what some civilians up there going saying, well, I was an airline pilot and I saw this. That doesn't mean that the civilian testimony isn't important. It means that you're going to do these hearings. You want the most powerful testimony possible. You want as few distractions as possible. You don't want to get off on the other 20 or 30 aspects of the ET reality, right? The point of these hearings is not to somehow finally give everybody the truth. It's to get to disclosure. So then after disclosure, we can now open the doors to every aspect of this issue that people want to learn about. And everything that should be appropriately put before a hearing in Congress will do so. And that is when I think the civilians are going to come forward. You're going to see maybe even people like me called up to the Hill. My phone number hasn't changed in 26 years, and my office is 2 blocks from the White House. But let me now get to something very important we were touching on that definitely needs to be expanded. For years, you keep hearing about amnesty and truth and reconciliation with respect to witnesses on the subject. All right. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. let's first talk about amnesty. Why would a witness coming forward need amnesty? All right. Here's the situation where that would probably be appropriate. The situation would be this: the Congress has gotten onto this issue. They're moving forward, and the DOD wants nothing to do with it. You're not seeing the kind of cooperation now. You're literally having to drag the DOD into this, and they're resisting it and making statements like, what the hell is going on? And there's really kind of a thing going on. But yet the Congress goes ahead with the hearings. And you've got former members of our military or even civilian agency people, right, the military intelligence complex, and they've been called to come up on the Hill and testify. And yet they know that the military intelligence complex, including the DOD, they're not happy about this at all. And so they are really worried that they're going to testify, and then the DOD is going to come at them in some way. If that were the circumstance, and it isn't, then it would be appropriate for the Congress to give these witnesses amnesty so that there could be no consequences coming at them from their former employee, whether it be the service of the DOD or the CIA or anything else, and thus protect them in that way. That is not needed because the CIA, Jim Semivan, Herman Kahn, the DOD, right? Mellon, Ellis, they basically said, yeah, we know what's coming. We're participating in this. So let's now talk about truth and reconciliation. All right. There's really only one basis why truth and reconciliation might be required, and it would be a law passed by the government. And I think this could happen. It will be post-disclosure, I assure you, not pre-disclosure. But post-disclosure, as we start digging deeper and more witnesses are coming forward and more things are known and documents are coming out, it is possible that there will be some individuals still alive who were involved in aspects of the truth embargo that were, say, unsavory, maybe clearly illegal, and perhaps not supportable purely on a national security basis. And yet we want to know what they know. We want to know what they did, because really, frankly, ultimately, we want to know everything about this issue, about UAPs, about everything the government knows, did, going back to 1947 or earlier if necessary. There is nothing ultimately that should be withheld from the world, nothing about this subject. But again, there could be some things very awkward and tough like that. In that circumstance, and I've said many times I would fully support it, they would pass a Reconciliation Act, meaning that if you were involved in something that has potential legal implications for you, if you come forward, this is exactly what happened with South Africa, if you come forward and give us full details, either in open or classified session, about exactly what happened and what you did, you will suffer no consequences. All right, now you see that's a fairly narrow area, and the amnesty issue, as far as I'm concerned, is not even needed now. And so I'm trying to say that. Why? I do not want anybody out there who may end up coming forward on this issue to have a exaggerated understanding of risks that they may be facing that aren't there. And the idea that maybe some nasty tweets will be made in the week or two following. These are men and women that I'm afraid are not afraid. These are men and women that are pretty tough, pretty smart. They've been around. They can handle that. What Lou has gone through is unique. He is the first person working from the military intelligence community that has come out in this forward-looking, forward-facing situation and said, I'm going to answer your questions, and I'm going to do 75 podcasts and interviews, even CNN, because somebody needs to do that, and there's something going on, and I want you to understand what's happening. He's the first person to ever do that. And I'm pretty sure when this thing all came together prior to the announcement of the To the Stars Academy, that no one thought that it was going to take 5 years. I think they thought we're going to announce the To the Stars Academy. New York Times is going to get some articles. Things are going to be rolling. And in a favorable administration, we're going to move aggressively to get hearings, and the whole damn thing would be done in 12 months. It didn't work that way. And so he has had to hang himself out for 5 years. And that is not what the witnesses are going to face.
Well, you have the non-cooperation of the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA, and the other 6 agencies that are involved with this, where the Senate Intelligence Committee is trying to extract information out of them and see what they have, and they're not getting it, and they're certainly not getting it from the Air Force.
Wait a minute. What are you referring to?
I'm referring to anything with the UAP task force and the Senate Intelligence Committee and trying to get cooperation from the agencies and every other branch of the military. The only branch of the military that seems to be some sort of cooperation with right now is the United States Navy. I'll say this. Anybody that would cooperate and seem to be moving forward when it comes to an intelligence agency is in fear of no more promotions, being pulled out of the field, given a desk job, early retirement. That to say that there isn't any possibility of any of that happening, that doesn't matter. This is what they think. This is the reason why there isn't any cooperation. You do know that there was a chat room on a secure network inside of the Pentagon for all of the branches of the military to go hang out and talk about UAPs and current events. Mm-hmm. And the Air Force came down on their own personnel and said, you will not go in that chat room. You will not talk about UAPs. Now,
when was this?
This was last year.
Okay.
Now, okay. The point being with all of that, that's exactly, they didn't go back into that chat room. Why? Okay. They don't want to be reprimanded. They don't want to be caught. And this is exactly what I'm talking about here. So yes, people do worry about this, and whether it happens or not doesn't matter. It's the frame of mind why people are not coming forward. Why do we not have, Stephen, right now, 100 military pilots on the record? We've got four in 5 years. What? They're the only ones to have ever seen the entire flotilla of the Nimitz battle group, right? And we've got a handful of people coming forward. Where's the rear admiral of that battle group? Why isn't he on the record right now? Why? Okay. Why? You tell. Right. Well, that's because they don't want anything to happen to them, and that is their retirement pay, that is reputation, that is a tax, and certainly the future of your career. And so, yeah, Burchett is absolutely right. We need them to come forward, and they need to know that we have their backs. And yeah, so it does need to stay public.
First, okay, look, this is good. You and I, you got a lot of knowledge. I got a lot of knowledge. So, you know, and I think people are going to learn from these exchanges. First of all, just because other agencies have not jumped into this doesn't mean that they're opposed to it or doing anything to suppress it. We don't need 100 pilots or anything like that. We need a certain number of witnesses, representative, some of which are already out there. That's more than enough. We don't need 100. They may come forward after disclosure. The fact that the Air Force is not engaged this just means that it's not appropriate yet for them to do it. Same thing for other agencies. But one thing we haven't seen, and I note this, the fact that they're kind of shutting, you know, they didn't want that chat room to get to be happening. I would say the reason for that, particularly if it was last year, is not because, you know, we're trying to hold this thing down, it's not going to happen. No, it's just that this process is going on, and they really don't need that happening, right? In other words, I keep getting back to the same thing. What is happening now is not about discovery. It's not about, okay, we've got to finally confirm this. We need 100 witnesses. We need the agencies to open up their files, and it'll all come out, and we'll learn the truth. They already know the truth. In order for us to get the truth, to get the extensive truth, we have got to get over the barrier of disclosure. We have to end the truth embargo. And as I've said, that is not a simple thing to do. Burchett can't do it. Schiff can't do it. Mellon can't do it. Elizondo can't do it. But what they can do is be part of and facilitate the process of the hearings, which sets the stage for disclosure. And so it is the public relations effort, this effort, that matters now. Okay, we're trying to get it done so that all of these other witnesses can come forward in droves without any concern at all, because the cat's out of the bag. The horses are out of the barn. The chickens have come home to roost, whatever the hell. And we're in the post-disclosure world. And so, again, I understand why people, after all of these years, want to get right there. But they're not thinking about the politics. It's very much like negotiations between, the United States and the Soviet Union. You got these diplomats, they get together and they're trying to get a treaty or something, all right? And people say, why don't you just say, hey, look, no more weapons. Let's just non-proliferation. Oh, no. They got to go back and forth and go through all these protocols. They have to lie to each other like crazy, trying to get an outcome that is in the best interest of both parties. Now, a lot of people think diplomacy is BS and it's all nonsense. And why don't you just sit down and do it? Hey, this is the real world. What it is. This issue has so much implications for every member of Congress, every major industry, every former member that served in the military. There are so many people whose lives are going to be affected that the idea that you just slam dunk it, this is way too big for that. You've got to go through a process that's responsible. The only thing that's really irritating right now is that this should have happened 30 years ago. And the reason why that's irritating is that I believe that if it happened 30 years ago, a lot of the wars that have taken place since then might not have happened. A lot of other unpleasant things that have taken place might not have happened. Because in the post-disclosure world, I think the worldview changes and the implications of it would have been such that let's have a war in Iraq. Let's just go over there for the hell of it. Let's just lie about it and get in there and change the government. Meanwhile, let's really go into Afghanistan and kick the hell out of them because somebody that hurt us operated from there once. And by the way, let's go into Syria. Let's go into Liberia. And Putin is over there saying, yeah, let me go into Georgia. Let me go into Chechnya, blow it to hell. All of this has happened since we had the moment to possibly get those hearings going in the 1990s and end this embargo. All right. That's what irritates me. And now, 30 years later, we still haven't gotten disclosure. And now we have a war where women and children are being slaughtered every day on camera with millions of cell phones paying attention, and all the reporters are there so we can see the bodies in the street. And you've got Lavrov and you've got Putin and others rattling the nuclear sabers. Yeah, we could use it. We could use it tomorrow. And our own people are going for it. Yeah, they could. Meanwhile, they're testing hypersonic missiles and even using those hypersonic missiles to attack the Ukraine, which if you put missiles on those hypersonics, there is nothing we can do to stop them. And they could land in New York in about a minute. Okay, this is where we are now. That's what irritates me about it. But that's the way it worked out. I can't change history. What I can do is do what I can to see to it that we don't miss this opportunity this time. We absolutely must get disclosure now. And by now, hopefully, I mean before the end of summer, before the elections, while we hope that we can continue to work this whole Ukraine thing and not go too far, okay? But I'm telling you, I have a meme out there, Jimmy, you know all about it. It's the two clocks, the paradigm clock, which is disclosure at midnight, and the doomsday clock, which is nuclear war at midnight. And we have, those two clocks have been competing to see which comes to midnight first for some time. And right now, it looks like the doomsday clock is kind of in the lead. And to give you another perfect example of how vulnerable we are now, how the risk of nuclear war is so high. And there are people that are saying this. The doomsday clock is the closest it's ever been to midnight. It's 100 seconds. And you've got others out there talking about we could have an EMP attack tomorrow. And if an EMP attack occurs in the United States, half the population will be dead in a year. But Biden goes over to Japan or goes over to Korea. And not surprisingly, he's asked a question about Taiwan. And not surprisingly, China has been licking their lips over Taiwan lately because, well, it looks like good old Vladimir is getting away with taking a massive chunk out of the Ukraine and killing a lot of people in the process. Okay? And so Biden takes this step. He is asked, will America use military force to defend Taiwan if China were to invade? And he did something that no other president has ever done. They've always stayed away from this remark. It's part of the little game that's played. And he says, yes. Well, guess what? China will have a response to that very soon. China's been testing the waters for some time now, firing missiles here, invading, getting into their space and everything else. And so the issue of a Ukraine situation developing in Taiwan, which would be 100 times worse, is now in play. And the point I'm making is we cannot continue to roll the dice. If we're going to have a nuclear war, let it be after disclosure. Let at least get that out of the way. Give the truth to the American people and the world's people. So at least when the missiles are flying and cities are going up in flames, we will at least know we're not alone in the universe. And once we're all gone, well, it's okay. The universe will continue. There's other civilizations and other tech. And maybe some of us are out there. We were kind of removed years ago, or they have our DNA or something. All right. But the idea that we continue to keep this truth withheld and embargoed while the nuclear proliferation continues and the risk of war goes on and on and on is absolute insanity.
Yeah, you're right. And we're at the end of the show. I'll say this risk has always been there. And certainly we've been closer to it than where we are right now.
We've never been closer, Jimmy.
Oh, no,
there's plenty of people. There's people in our own government saying that.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Not even close.
Wow. Well, hey.
I'm serious. And look, I will send you the links. We have people in our national security structure that are absolutely going in front of the press and saying we have the greatest risk at nuclear war than ever.
These words have to be said. And statements have to be put in check, and they need to be responded to, Steve. I absolutely. And if we don't, somebody's not doing their job.
Any former national security CIA guy or anything else that goes out and says to the press that we are at greater risk than ever for nuclear war, who actually doesn't believe that, he's just saying it to sort of get people's attention.
Not at all.
He's a traitor.
Not at all. You're right about that, but it's Putin that has started this.
I no, I'm not. It's not a question of who's at fault.
No,
nuclear risk is nuclear risk. It doesn't matter who starts it.
What I'm saying is you have to respond to that rhetoric. You have to respond to it, and that's it. And we have to. You just can't let those words disappear into the ether. You have to respond to it.
Of course.
With that being said, I've got 30 seconds. I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. Very important week, not only for the UFO community, but for all of the world and the history of mankind. I'll say this, that I'm not satisfied with this hearing. I thought it was great, but we cannot be satisfied. We have to have more.
Of course not. Absolutely.
And that's it. And I think that's where we are all right now, is that we want more. We can never be satisfied.
Not until we get disclosure itself. And before I leave, I invite everybody to follow me on Twitter, Steve Bassett or Paradigm Research Group, also Paradigm Research Group on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me. I really need to build my social media network right now because, again, the game is afoot, and the social media, believe it or not, is going to play a very important role in how this ends up.
It already has. Stephen Bassett, you're the best. This is why Stephen and I get along. Oh, you should see us in private. We fight.
We don't fight.
Stephen, you're the best, man. I look forward to our next dinner over here, and it's going to be a great one, my friend. Thank you so much. Great night on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right.
And the links for Stephen, Paradigm Research Group, of course, are in social media and over on our website. Another great show tonight. Thank you so much, Stephen. This is night one of our UFO hearing week here on Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Sean Cahill and a very special guest, maybe two. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmasters, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast owned and copyrighted 2022 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This was night 1. Tomorrow night is number 2. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.